Welcome into the Birdland Network, where we talk all things Orioles and Major League Baseball. And we're back today with a brand new video. And today's video is kind of going to be kind of an opinion piece. I wouldn't even really call it a rant, but kind of an opinion piece on the state of starting pitching in Major League Baseball, and in my opinion on whether or not the starting pitcher is starting to become irrelevant, or dare I say, an extinct position in the future. But let's talk a little bit about it. But before we do, if you are new here, please consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. That way, every time we go live or do a new video, you'll be notified. And please give us a thumbs up. It definitely helps the video. But let's get right into this. So again, this is kind of an opinion piece. I definitely want to hear from you guys in the comments in the end what you think about the state of starting pitching. But I do ask that, please be respectful of your comments. It's just an opinion. Mine is just an opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm just saying this is how I see it moving forward when it comes to starting pitching. And I also get that, look, I grew up in the 70s. The game has definitely transcended and become a lot different than it was back in those days, or even as it was just 20 years ago. So I understand that, but I don't necessarily think that's for the better. And that's kind of what I'm going to get into today. So let's kind of get into it right now. So again, when we look at starting pitching, I think starting pitching has really become less important than it used to be back in the day. Whether it be in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, or even just as recent as 20 years ago in 2004, the game is totally different now when it comes to starting pitching than it was back then. And I'll kind of go over different reasons why I think that is. First and foremost, let's just kind of go over some numbers. I'm just going to go back to 2004 and compare to 2024 some numbers that I've been looking at. So let's start back in 2024. Last year, and again, my numbers could be wrong, but these are the numbers that I pulled up, and I think they're right. Only 4 guys in Major League Baseball topped 200 innings last year. 4. Only 4. In all of baseball last year, 4 guys topped 200 innings pitched. There were 28 complete games in all of Major League Baseball last year. No pitcher had more than 2 complete games. And of course, injuries, Tommy John surgeries, reconstructive surgeries, elbow issues, whatever, are up. And it's just kind of like, it's just like a major issue with Major League Baseball. I mean, the Orioles alone have got like 3 guys that had Tommy John surgery last year. Tyler Wells, Kyle Bradish, Felix Bautista. There's just 3, and that's just on the Orioles. So that's 2024. Now, when we go back to 2004, just to give you some comparisons, there were 41 guys that had 200 or more innings pitched, compared to this year, or 2024, where there were only 4. So 41 in 2004, 4 in 2024. There were 150 complete games in 2004. 150, of which Livan Hernandez led the league with 9. He had 9 of them. He had 9 complete games. Nobody had more than 2 last year in 2024. And obviously injuries were not at what they are today in baseball. So just looking at those numbers alone, why the difference? Why are complete games down? Why is innings pitched down so much? Why are injuries up so much? Well, this is where I think baseball has really kind of lost its way. And let's get into that. We'll start with the first one. And to me, I think it's a couple different things. Let's start on the obvious things. Look, there's specialization among pitchers now. I totally understand that. You have long relievers, you have short relievers, you have specializations for lefties, you have specialization for righties, you have closers. So you have things back today that you didn't have maybe back in the 70s or even the 80s, but you definitely had it in 2004. But I get it. There's specialization of pitchers. So yes, I understand that that's going to do a little bit more to the game and maybe cause some of this. But here's where I think the big difference is. And we'll start with the first one for me. And that's, I think it's systemic and I think it's cultural. And here's what I mean by that. Pitchers are ingrained and developed in their mind from the very beginning, and their bodies from the moment they enter professional baseball. The minute that team drafts them, they're under the guidance of the team to only pitch so much. They're not going to extend these guys. They're not going to teach these guys. They're not going to develop them to be able to go 9 innings. They don't do that. They just don't. They pull them after 5. They get to 100 pitches, they're out of the game. They get to 105 pitches, they're out of the game. If they're at 80 pitches through three innings because they're struggling, they're out of the game. So these guys are not developed to be able to go a little bit longer. It's just, that's how it is. It's systemic, in my opinion. It starts the minute they enter pro ball all the way up to the major leagues. And I think that's a problem. I don't think that these guys should be like that. I think they should learn to go longer in games and pitch longer in games, throw more pitches, develop the arm, let the arm grow, let the arm become stronger so that it can take the workload. But they don't do that in baseball in today's game. Now, another thing for me with the systemic part of it is players are taught max effort on every single pitch. And I think that puts unnecessary stress on the arm. Look at guys like Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine. These are guys who, they weren't max velocity guys. They weren't max effort guys on every single pitch, but they had great command of their pitches. They knew how to pitch. They understood counts. They understood situations, and they knew how to get outs. Now, if they had to reach back for something a little extra where a strikeout was needed, so be it. They could do what they needed to do at that time. But they knew how to pitch. They had control. They had understanding of the game and the situations at all time, and that's why they were great, even though they weren't guys that threw 95 to 99 every time. And I think that's a lost art in today's game. And I think another part of it too, when you talk about max effort, is guys run out of gas by the 5th inning. They're at 110 pitches, they're at 115 pitches, something like that, and they're running out of gas. And I think that's part of it as well. They're not as efficient with their pitch selections or their innings, and I think that's part of it as well. But when it comes to innings pitched, I will say this. In 2004, Mark Burley threw a total of 3,690 pitches over 245 in the 3rd innings. That's about 15 and a half pitches per 9 innings. Well, Logan Webb, just last year in 2024, threw 3,202 pitches over 204 in 2/3 innings. That's about 15.6 pitches per inning. So not much of a difference there over 20 years looking at the most pitches thrown. But why is it pitchers today can't go further? Again, I think it's the max effort. It's the max velocity on every pitch that's wearing them down to the point that they can't go the extra because they're out of gas. And I think that's a cultural thing. That's a systemic thing. It's how they're taught from the beginning. And I think that's something that needs to change. So that's the first one. That's the big one, in my opinion. Another one to me, analytics. I think we all love analytics, but I think we're too in love with analytics in today's game. We are infatuated with numbers, this, that, WAR, sub-WAR, this WAR, that WAR, spin rate, max velocity, barrel rate, exit velocity, this, that, and the other. All these different things that are looked at in baseball today. The game relies, in my opinion, too heavily on analytics and the numbers. Pitchers are more concerned with spin rate. They're more concerned with velocity. They're more concerned with striking people out than they are giving their team length and pitching to contact. Sometimes it's okay to pitch to contact, but that's not in the game. The analytics don't play to that. And I think matchups take priority over talent. In other words, a great pitcher might be going through his 2nd or 3rd time through the lineup, and he might be pulled due to the fact there's an unfavorable matchup that's coming up. He may be pulled from the game. Well, in the old days, a manager would say, you know what? This is Jim Palmer on the mound. This is Roger Clemens on the mound. I understand that this guy hits him pretty well. He batting 300 against him. But you know what? That's Roger Clemens. We're going to let him work his way out of this. And they just don't do that in today's game. They don't let talent win the day. They let the matchups win the day too much. And it doesn't always work out for them. You see that all the time. And I think that's a big deal here. And I think that's an issue. And, I think the last one, and this is a big one as well, I think the money obviously plays a big part in this. Pitchers today are paid incredible amounts of money. And teams are leery and to be honest, just downright afraid to risk injury with that sort of commitment on the line. They just can't have a guy like a Corbin Burns who signed a huge contract with Arizona. They can't have him extended because if he extends and gets hurt, then they've paid all this money to a guy that they don't have. And I understand that. I do. I understand what they're saying there. But that being said, it's all about how you develop them. And I just think baseball's gotten away from it. And I think it's too bad. I think that the starting pitcher used to be something that was much more important. I still think it is important, and that's why I get upset sometimes that the Orioles don't have that true ace. But I wish that they would get back to that. Guys just don't finish games today. And I think Justin Verlander had talked about this the other day. And again, don't quote me on this. I don't know his exact words, but I think he had mentioned something about that, how they used to make fun of guys that couldn't pitch more than 5 innings. And today, it's the prerequisite of being a starting pitcher. So, it's just one of those things where starting pitching isn't as important as it used to be in the game, or at least it doesn't seem to be, because they don't make it feel that way. And again, I may be explaining some of this wrong, but that's my take on this when it comes to starting pitching. I think this is becoming less and less of a position that is important as it used to be. But there you go. That's my opinion on the starting pitching. I think this is becoming a dying breed. And now it's out to you. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? What do you think about starting pitching? Is it still healthy? Is it still very vibrant? Or is it in a bad spot and getting worse? Or do we feel like it might be getting better? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know. Other than that, if you are new here, or if you're coming in for the first time and you made it this far, I appreciate you listening to my rant. But please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It definitely helps. We just went over 1,100. I can't believe it. I'm very happy with the growth of the channel. It's been awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you being here. Season's not too far off. Spring training's in full effect. It's been fun, and I can't wait for opening day. But until next time, keep rooting for the O's or your team, and take care of yourselves and each other. Bye now.